Hi, lovelies. So you're dropping into a conversation that we began that we decided we'd just press record and share it with you.
Mid convo.
Yes, so let me go back. Let me recap some of what. Sorry, the dog is making a noise. All right, so sensitives. Sensitives are the sixth sensed, the empaths, the people who receive information on six pathways instead of just the standard five. We call people who are five sense normals. So I'm just setting up some language here. So anybody who's jumping into
You
this,
just jump in now.
Yeah.
You have some context to what we're talking about.
So in the past, in past podcasts, we've discussed some of this. So if you've missed any of that, perhaps this will give you some context. All right. So sensitives are the sixth sense, the empaths, people receiving information through six channels rather than the standard five. We call people who receive on only five channels normals. And of course, most of humanity until very recently were five sensed. And then the momentum started, and people who receive information energetically and then translate it through any one of their faculties, those people are then called sixth sensed individuals. Most of mankind, I think, right now speaks about them in terms of clairvoyance or intuitives or sensitives. And so, really, what we're talking about is this growing number of people. There has been a shift in the consciousness of mankind, and mankind is evolving. And as we evolve, we're developing the sixth sense. There have always been sixth sense people throughout time. Some of them were known as prophets, others were known as seers, sometimes they were herbalists or medicine people.
Or madmen or wizards or, things like that. We've been there.
Yes, the sixth sense people have been around since the beginning of time, but they were more or less one in 10,000 or one in 100,000, and they usually became the healer or the local seer or the local wizard type person. And really, now in the last at least 100 years, there has been researched and scientifically vetted growth in the number of sensitive and sixth sense. And you just need to visit social media to see the number of people who now identify as empaths or sensitive. So there's a growing number of these people, and they are a new breed of human being. I don't want to put that too lightly. We are a new breed of human being. We think differently, we feel differently. Some of us are sensitives from birth, so we come out of the womb with our six senses blaring, and the world is a very confusing place for a born sensitive these days because the world is very dishonest. And as young people, we have to try and find our way through all that we can see as not being true and try and work all of that out. And one thing that's common to most sensitives or empaths or sixth sense people is that we feel like we didn't get the handbook. Everybody else got some kind of
handbook.
Yeah. We feel like looking around at all of these well-adjusted five-sensed individuals, they seem to have gotten...
They must have a book because they seem so happy. They must be going play by play and sailing through life. It's what?
and we just really don't.
Where's mine?
We just feel like everything that seems normal to others just is really not normal to us. And one particular application of that is the corporate world. Let's use a word for it. It's not so much just corporates, big business. It's also institutions. So government.
Yep. Same thing. Yeah.
And we born, raised, grow, and then we as young adults get out into the world. And one commonality amongst most sensitives out there is that we quickly, in the workspace, we quickly find ourselves feeling resistant, maybe.
Anti-resistant.
A little bit rebellious, perhaps, depending on
rebellious, like you maybe work in the corporate environment and you have two earrings as a guy or an earring as a guy, or you grow your hair long, or you dress slightly inappropriately, like, was it necessary to wear that purple suit to work? Not that I'm talking from experience or anything that I've done, but
Yeah, sure.
I mean, as a perfect example,
Yeah.
I would often flout as much corporate culture as I could, because I felt that if you were forcing me into this box, I was then going to force you to accept my differences and things that spilled out of the box.
And part of that is Gen X. Part of that is Generation X is very much about show me and why should I. But the part that is really particular to sensitives is we find ourselves in these hierarchies that we, at our deepest knowing, so that's a sixth sense knowing, we know that these structures are fake. We know that they are inauthentic,
Yeah, we
dishonest,
felt this from school.
and in a lot of applications corrupted. And we sense that at a deep level.
And it's really a lot of insincerity, which is like, you'll have some kind of internal corporate campaign and everybody will be so excited. Oh, we're going to do this. And you're looking at this, you go, you don't know. You don't, this is not real. You're faking. It was from a fake, and a fake, and now you are, I can't join this circus.
So for many sensitives that are in the workplace and always feeling resistant, or they feel rebellious, or they feel like they don't fit, they might want to consider that at some deep level, what you really perceive, what you pick up on, is the dishonesty of the system, the insincerity of the systems that are created. For example, that the bosses who have the money are the most wise, or are the authorities.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, they may have the money.
It's the CEO who knows everything.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily make them good people, and it doesn't always
or
make
bad
them...
people.
Or bad people.
I actually have worked for, there was a CEO for a company that I worked for who I thought was an amazing person.
Okay, so they're not good people or bad people, but you can, at a sixth sense level, pick up the fact that perhaps their demand for respect and authority is inauthentic, because they maybe are not deserving of that. Or maybe they are, but the fact that it's demanded simply because they have the money.
I am in this position, therefore, when I walk in the room, everybody must stand.
And it's the same on a broader level with, say, banking and these other authorities, like your legal authorities, that other people may be incredibly deferential. Other people may go to the bank, hold their hat in hand, and humbly request.
It's like you have to learn how to speak the institutional language.
Yeah, and they may be very sincere in that. 5 sense people have, in that sense, a playbook that this is how you behave in this environment. Yeah. Whereas the sixth sense pick up something else. They pick up more of what's going on, and perhaps they look at the global systems, the banking structures and all of this, and intrinsically feel nauseated. There is something about the way the world has been set up that is an anathema to a sensitive. We feel its wrongness. We feel there's something out of sync. Perhaps it goes to capitalism, and I'm not a socialist, so I'm not political in any way. But there is something in these systems that is not right. And sensitives can feel that. And then at some level, they just don't want to participate. We just look at this and say, this is ugly. I don't want to be here. And yet, our social conditioning, our social structure requires of us that we play these roles, that we participate as such or as so-and-so. And that can become a conflict, especially an inner conflict. We also can take a lot of judgment from ourselves for that. The fact that we are not very good at climbing corporate ladders.
Why can't I do this? Why can't I fit in? If I could only just comply with them, I could maybe get a promotion and get more money. This is an issue.
And we feel that there's something wrong with us because we don't play nicely. with narcissists and psychopaths. And that's really
and that's
what most of the
that's what
CEOs and
institution's
the
run
banking
by.
institutions are run by successfully.
Yeah.
Ask anyone in corporate life, and narcissists and psychopaths make the best CEOs of successful companies. And we reject that at such a fundamental level.
Yeah.
In terms of the world, speaking globally, it's really good news, because the systems we have created don't work.
Yeah.
They don't. You look at the world right now, and capitalism driving every aspect of life has created stories like this. So let's imagine that you make a product.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call that product a treatment. Let's say you make a treatment.
Okay.
Yeah, and you make money out of that treatment, right? And so you get that treatment through all the necessary authorities, and you make sure that everybody it's authorized to be sold, and you're making some money. But what would be better is if more people needed this treatment. So if you're a narcissist or a psychopath and the head of a successful company, you would have no qualms about making sure that more people needed this treatment, so that your company would make more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you could do all sorts of things. Get into bed perhaps with people who create food, and make sure that they include an ingredient in the food that eventually will make people need your treatment. Some might say that's a far-fetched idea, but under pure capitalism, with psychopaths and narcissists at the helm, who's to say that wouldn't be what happens?
Exactly. I mean,
So we look at the system that's currently in place in the Western world, and we see that intrinsically there's something wrong with it. And so a part of us rejects it, and we find it very difficult to toe the line, to do things that would damage people, would not serve people in any way.
Yeah.
All right. So there we go, sensitive lovelies. If you're out there and you felt always like there's something wrong with the world, well, here's a voice out here telling you that there is. There is something wrong with the world.
It's not you.
The world is being run, to the most part, by narcissists, psychopaths, and such. And as I was saying about the good news for the world is that this growing number of sensitives who could never behave in such a way, not because we're in some way better than anybody.
We're not morally better.
No, we're not morally superior in any way, but it makes us feel so bad to injure another human being that we could never possibly live with that.
It's like, why would I choose to do something that actually hurts me as much as I'm hurting somebody else? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so think about it this way. The five sensed need repercussion. The five sense need consequences in order to behave correctly. So for the five sensed, it's vital that if they, injure another human being, they could be injured in some way in return.
Yeah.
So for the five sense, there's that. Those systems have all been designed and developed to manage the five sensed.
Yep.
And to keep population under control, amongst the five sense.
Yeah.
But for the sensitives, those catches are almost unnecessary. I'm not saying they're always, but they're almost unnecessary, because we cannot injure another soul without feeling the backlash of that. And so tend to live.
Even the thought of it, I find, actually hurts me. It doesn't matter how I actually feel. If I think negatively, or it actually ends up the first person it hits is me, and I'm like, okay, let's just chill out.
So we have a kind of governor, emotional, moral governor, that the five sense didn't have, which was that negative thoughts, negative thinking, vengeful thoughts, hateful thoughts are actually repulsive within ourselves, and therefore we reject them within ourselves. And so one day, when the normals awaken their sixth sense and the majority of the population of Earth are all sensitives, then there are a lot of problems that will disappear, and life will
it'll
be...
actually just, it's so, and to be honest, it's not like, oh, I'm a sensitive, I feel everything, because it hasn't always been like this. But as I've grown and I've accepted myself more, I accept when I have certain thoughts, those thoughts are uncomfortable and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because those thoughts are meant to be uncomfortable. And then I go, all right. So as I've grown more, I'm more in tune with that sense. And that's really been the key. It's getting in tune with that sense, being at peace with that sense, getting in the zone with yourself, and everything will actually take care of itself.
Well, it's the way that the current establishment has framed the sensitivity or the sixth sense. They've done one of two things with it. On the one hand, horror movies were created.
Oh yeah.
Where all voices in your head were evil and
Yep.
telling you to do bad things. And
those were the only voices. There were only evil voices out there. Yeah.
And on the other hand, they've suppressed them as far as they can.
Yeah.
And so sensitives feel like they need to hide an aspect of themselves. Or that this aspect of themselves, their sensitivity to energy, is to blame for much of their lives.
Yeah.
And really, part of the motivation for this podcast, part of the motivation for doing these recordings, is to give to those who feel that their own nature is blameworthy, the opportunity to really reconsider that, and to consider that perhaps the way they feel, being sensitive, is perhaps your superpower, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
This is an ability to explore and expand, and because there's not a lot of guidance and training and
or
positive
systems in place,
enforcement,
that you have all of these institutional systems that can show you how to do this, and you comply to this and you get that. But when you're sensitive, you're kind of left out there to the wilds, and there's no real place that has a clear, ABC, or even how you want to step through it. It's all kind of the wilds.
And the ones that are out there seem like they require of you to accept extremes. Like if you're a sensitive, you automatically have to believe that you're channeling an alien from Sirius Minor.
Yes.
Or something.
Oh my goodness. And my past life. Why wasn't anybody ever in the past life like one of those people? Like, my job was to open the door.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have anything to do, but that was my job, to open the door. And one day I was too late and somebody killed me. It's like, why do we always have to? I mean, it's lovely that we aspire for all of these big and wonderful things. And in my past life, I was the Roman emperor. Wonderful, great, lovely. But let's look at this realistically and not just go there, because that's not what you're expressing. That's not what that is. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm not going to go into now. So the whole thing is,
we will do something on reincarnation one day.
Yeah.
But it's not maybe today.
Not topic. Now. We were just talking about sensitives and institutions and all that other stuff. Okay, I'll get back on track.
Yeah, that is a whole conversation.
Oh yeah. That was a digression.
Yeah. So really, sensitives out there, if you're feeling like you are alone in your discomfort with the structures of the world, and if you feel like participating with them and in them is a struggle at every turn, it might be worth considering that you're not wrong.
Yeah.
That really there is something wrong with these places and these structures, and that they do need to change.
And it's okay that they're wrong, because they're showing us what we don't want.
Yes, and this past that we're living will give way to a better future, with the momentum of the sensitives, with the momentum of, we've got to achieve two things first. Firstly, we have to have enough sensitives make it to adulthood.
Yeah.
Currently, the stats put us at 1 in 20. So 1 in 20 of us makes it to adulthood. And then once in adulthood, we have to really heal and strengthen the sensitive community so we can stand our ground. We can be certain of ourselves and really harness our true knowing, and not go off on tangents out into unreal places, and really provide an alternative picture of the evolution of mankind to plugging into the matrix. Because really that's what the five sense think is the next step for the evolution of mankind, is
Let's
to
plug into a
create,
machine.
is to
Ugh.
create
Look,
technology.
I worked in IT for a really long time. I have a real major problem with that whole concept, because when you understand how people write code and the effort that goes through and all that kind of stuff, I would never subject myself
Put
to
somebody's code
to
in your
somebody.
brain.
No, I mean there's imperfection. It's not even close to being correct or right or anything.
This is the alternative.
Hmm.
Either we all join the matrix and plug into some sort of supercomputer where we can be adequately controlled, which by the way, I've never met a sensitive who felt good about that idea.
Mm-mm.
And so that's another thing.
It actually makes me feel, now I'm really having a sense of claustrophobia. I'm sorry. I brought it up.
It makes us it nauseates us. So we know, as sensitives and anyone who's hooked into any kind of knowing, we know that the next step in the evolution of mankind has nothing to do with machines. We know that it's a spiritual evolution that has to do with the dominance of spirit over greed. And it doesn't mean everybody has to live in poverty and go
and squalor and all that
no,
sort of stuff.
come on, abundant. There's enough abundance in this
There's
planet.
There's so much of everything. We don't even have an idea
Yeah.
of how much there actually is.
Yeah.
And it's like my whole thought is we're all in this world grubbing around for like these things that we feel are important, but we've not even discovered other things that are important as well. This is not all that's in this world. I really have a very strong sense of that it's like we've gone down this path, and these things in this path are important. But as soon as we break out of that, we actually can see the world for what it is and go, oh, wow, hey, did you notice? So it's really that whole perception. Yeah.
So, a life dominated by capitalism alone is going to leave 90% of the population struggling for survival always. And here's the funny thing, that even the 10% that are not struggling for survival still are. And I'll tell you why. In order to accumulate the masses that they accumulate, they have to commit acts that are conscious, that are repulsive to anyone's conscience. Yeah. So today, the top 10%, if they are not psychopaths and narcissists, carry a huge weight of potential guilt and they might justify it. They might have all sorts of reasons why. I don't mind that I supported a genocide in a country because I got rich out of it. But at some level, there is at least the fear that they will be uncovered or discovered. And that fear propels them back into survival. So
see what you have to kill for. I can't imagine.
Most of the world's wealthy people are in survival too. So really we're in a world of survival. Imagine what will happen with mankind when we're thriving. When mankind is thriving, when everybody has enough of whatever they need, and we can just focus on expansion, on discovery, on finding out what this world is about, on doing real research and real discovery and inner research, on finding out what makes us good and better. And anyway, that's a whole nother story. So if you are feeling and you have felt like you are in some way not fitting in with the norm because the institutions and what you see out there in the world nauseates you, you might want to consider that is not a blameworthy perception, that you might have always been onto something, and that maybe, just maybe, you are one of the individuals that's going to help shift us away from the fake structure that has been created by people who are trying to protect what they have.
And it's not an angry, forceful shift. It's just a
Energetic shift.
It's just an
Shift
energetic
of
shift.
consciousness. Yeah.
Just a shift of consciousness. You're in a place you don't like. It's uncomfortable. If I could just act right, I could get somewhere. It's all right. The reason why you feel like that is because you're sensitive, and you're on target. Good. Now expand that. That's right. You're uncomfortable. Great. Yay. Where do we go from here? Yes.
And that's possibly the shift in perception that's needed for all the sensitives. We need to stop defining ourselves in 5 sense terms. The 5 sensed may hear us say, I really know that this thing is true, and they might say, yeah, you're a little cuckoo, you. And at some level we might believe them. And we really need to look at that again. We need to, even if you just consider yourself an intuitive, and you know that your intuition is never wrong, but your family and friends maybe think you're a little out there, maybe consider that there are a lot of other people out there too who also
have the same experiences and go through the same things. Because that's the other thing, is we all feel we're absolutely, I could be standing next to you as a sensitive, and we could both be feeling like we're alone in the world.
Yes. And because our nature is to isolate, is to keep secret this ability that we have, or as we may think of it, this disability that we
exactly,
have. Yeah. But it's not. There's a whole world to rediscover as sensitives. The world needs to be relooked at through our eyes and through our perceptions.
And it's just things you just don't do as a sensitive. It's like, oh, I wonder, could we go and make a bomb that was so big? Why? Why?
Yeah, no.
There's a bomb already. It does. Okay, good. We don't need more bigger ones. Why? What for?
Yeah.
It's not an avenue that a sensitive would go down in terms of experimentation. It's like,
well, one thing is, if the sensitives took over the management of the world tomorrow,
oh goodness,
kindness would be a minimum requirement. Meanness would probably be outlawed. Like if you were mean to somebody, you would have to go and have you would have to go and be re-educated.
You'd have to go and get like 50 hugs.
Yes.
You have to get 50 hugs.
Story. I love that story of that village in Africa somewhere where if somebody lies or acts out in some way, they get buried with their head out in the middle of the village, and for a whole day the villagers walk around them and positively affirm them.
I remember when you were 2 years old, you were such a beautiful person. You had a smile and a hug that was as big as a mile. See you later.
Yeah. So they're basically going on the idea that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And if that is true, hurt people, can you imagine what healed people can do?
Exactly.
So
I like that. That's a good way to end it.
Yes.
Healed people.
Carry on with your healing journey, people. It's never ending, but it just keeps getting better.
Exactly.
And that's us. Good afternoon from somewhere in Africa.